pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Could it carry my wisdom beyond the barrier?
It could, yes.
Then I shall make use of this starship.
It will be your chariot.
Excuse me.
It will carry my power to every corner of creation.
Excuse me, I'd just like to ask a question. What does God need with a starship?
Bring the ship closer.
I said, what does God need with a starship? Chairman, what are you doing? I'm asking you a question.
The pod bay doors are open. Welcome once again. I'm your host, Jerry Dean Roberts of ArmchairCinema.com and OverthinkingOscars.wordpress.com. Sitting here with a man who actually knows how to pronounce the word marshmallow, the critic, dare I say legend, from TalkMovie.com, Mr. Doug Heller. How the heck are you today, sir?
Excuse me. I'd just like to ask a question. What does God need with a starship?
What does God need with a starship?
You didn't answer my question. What does God need with a starship?
Welcome to Turkey Month, our annual quartet of movies that went down in history and came right back up. Mm-hmm. Oh boy. We love doing this. I mean, we love doing this because
we do have a masochistic streak about us.
For 1 month out of the year at least. Because and I'm opening Turkey Month this year with a whopper. This is Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
or William Shatner ruins the franchise.
Yeah. Well, it didn't quite ruin the franchise.
No, it didn't. This is a minor blip, honestly. But
well, here's the funny thing about Star Trek V is it's bad. Mm-hmm. But the other Star Trek movies are not this bad.
Right. The only thing that's probably marginally a little worse is Nemesis.
Maybe, but at least Nemesis was taking itself seriously.
That's true.
And it has a streamlined narrative that at least you can follow. This one, I don't even know. It's credited to 3 different writers, and I don't think they were ever even in the same state.
I actually like I question whether this was actually written.
Oh, I'm sure it was written. I'm sure it was because. Well, I won't call Shatner a writer because all of his books are ghostwritten, but it's so haphazard and jumbled. It's like they came up with an idea, they threw it into the movie, and they never followed it up. There are 10 different plots here that are brought up and never referenced again.
Yeah, there's
There are 10 different characters that are brought up and never
first
referenced
of all,
again.
The whole Scotty Uhura budding romance that had never had a precedent before and never showed up again.
Mm-mm.
And that was just not developed whatsoever. It was just thrown in. It's, God, what is it? It's like a half hour or 40 minutes before we even get to the Enterprise.
It's like an hour.
Yeah, and it's like the movie plays like a 2-part episode with all of the dialogue and setup weighted in the first half, in the first episode, the first 45 minutes. And then the action and everything in the last 45 minutes. Because this is only about an hour and 45 minutes long.
Meaningless dialogue.
Oh, this is a trash heap of... I mean... So, okay, yes. First, marshmallow.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that?
Well...
In what universe has anyone ever seen marshmallow spelled out marshmallow.
Melon.
It's mallow. M-A-L-L-O-W. This is Malomar.
Yeah.
Marshmallow bar. That's what that is.
Right.
How is that? And this little thing that apparently can replicate solidified whipped powdered sugar, I guess? That's all? Because that's all marshmallows really are.
It's a portable food replicator, I guess? I don't know.
I guess, but, I mean, and here, but why just beans? Honestly, why is that a thing? Like,
Oh,
I get...
We'll get there. We'll get there. This is a movie. This is. I will say very quickly that the movie did very quickly get back on its feet after this.
Star Trek
and you
6
notice,
is awesome.
And you know, oh, it is. It's great. I love Star Trek 6.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that, and did you notice how quickly they move past anything that happened in this movie? Because nothing that happens in this movie, I think, is ever referenced in anything else again. Ever.
No, I don't believe so.
And it barely references the other ones. Just barely.
It references... The most it does, really, is reference the end of 4,
Mm-hmm.
when they get on the ship and he says, let's see what she's got, or let's see what she can do. And then in Scotty's horrible engineer log, he brings up he talks about the captain said, how let's see what she's got, and we found out, didn't we? It's just a bunch of junk. And
Yeah.
the turning the Enterprise into the Millennium Falcon just did not work. And it's worse because it's the second time they did that. It worked in Star Trek 3 because they were stealing a damaged ship.
Yeah.
This just came right out of dry dock after being recommissioned as the Enterprise. The ship had been out not long before, brought in, so somebody wasn't doing their job on maintenance, or it's just a piece of shit ship.
Well, let me tell you this. I watched this the other night. So did you.
Mm-hmm.
With all the goodwill in the world, just trying to make some sense out of it.
I always watched this with goodwill because when I was a kid, I thought some of it was funny.
It's a bunch of dad jokes.
It is, and so.
Well, the biggest thing is, I'm trying to get underneath this, certain scenes and to go, okay, well, let's see what this is. Okay, the scene's not working, but let's see what the intent was here. But right at the beginning, and I got to bring this up because this is driving me nuts. This is, I think, unless I'm mistaken, because I don't remember exactly how Nemesis opened, I think this is the only one with a cold open. Because it opens.
That Nemesis is weird enough that the Romulan Senate assassination happens before the credits, but I can't say for certain.
Okay, because this has a cold open, and it's a giant question mark to me. I still cannot figure out. I was watching it the other night, and I'm going to sound like I'm nitpicking, but this does stand for a lot because it stands for how the rest of the movie plays out. It opens on this trash heap of a planet. It's a desert with just dust and wind and rocks. And the text, the first text, says Nimbus 3 in the neutral zone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you're looking at this horrible, awful, dusty, dirty planet. This pile of desolation. And then the next one...
It's like Tatooine without any of the charm.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the next credits says, in quotes, the planet of galactic peace, which feels like it's a joke. Because it's like, this tone of sadness and desolation and the planet of galactic peace. Get it? Joke.
I think that's what they wanted.
And then it goes right back into... It's
right.
a weird...
And then you get into...
It's like... It feels to be like... I don't mean to interrupt you. It feels to me like that scene in X-Men Apocalypse when all of the missiles are being fired at once and you see everybody looking at them, and it's this sad tone, this sad music, and then all of a sudden in the middle of it we get a Stan Lee cameo.
Yeah, right.
And then it goes right back in, and it's like, it's very strange.
Well, see, when they get inside the cat stripper joint,
Mm-hmm.
with the cat lady with 3 breasts. Which had to be brought up.
It's unavoidable.
It's unavoidable.
Well, I mean, it's also... Anyway, I'm sorry.
Well, but if you watch the background and listen, you hear these ads for Paradise City. Which goes almost as far as actually singing "Take Me Down to Paradise City,"
right,
where the grass is green and the girls are pretty.
Won't you please take me home?
All right. And then we get a scene of unrelenting exposition. This whole movie is exposition.
Hang on, because I gotta talk about this because I don't want this to get away. The whole movie introduces something that I am still trying to figure out, because that opening scene introduces us to this little guy who has clearly been in this desert for a long time, and he's digging holes in the ground. And somebody comes up out of the horizon on horseback. And there's this weird scene of, give me your pain.
Okay, yeah. I've never understood this either. Now, Vulcans are low-level telepaths.
Yeah.
But whatever it is he does, all he ever did, it feels like, was like flash therapy sessions where he would like drop a truth bomb on somebody and they would think they were cured and they would just follow him like he was Jesus.
Yeah, and it's this little guy, he says something like,
who needs a dentist?
Yeah. I can't believe you would... It needs dentures. I can't believe you would kill me over a field of holes. And he says, it's all I have.
That is so sad. And that line, that man,
yeah,
in that scene, the way he looked and the way he delivered, actually was pretty convincing.
Right. But my problem is that he gives him a hug. It's hug therapy.
And how did you what is this power you have? It's like, I feel like a great weight has been lifted from my heart. Why? He just said share your pain with me and then assaulted you.
The homoeroticism in this scene
is
an inch thick. I mean, it's... Well, I mean, the guy's on his knees. But... Yeah. And then all of a sudden, he takes the hood off, and of course he's a Vulcan, and he starts to laugh, and we're supposed to be, it's a Vulcan with emotions, and I'm thinking, Vulcans have emotions.
Yeah, they just don't use them.
They just don't use them.
And a Vulcan with emotions is a Romulan.
Yes. Yes.
We already have that. There's already one on that planet.
Yeah. Yeah. So the scene makes no sense. This is the first 5 minutes of the movie. Yeah. and already it's on the wrong track.
It's inexplicable from the word go. And after we get that initial you know, Cybok, there are more of us than you think, and you're a Vulcan. And again, pointy ears. He could have been any damn thing in this
He
in this
could.
galaxy.
He could.
Specifically Vulcans or Romulans, but it could have been anything.
Yeah. I want you to try to explain to me.
Yeah.
These three people that come to this Paradise City, there's a human, a Klingon, and a Romulan walk into a bar.
And
Explain this to me, because I have no idea.
And the Andorian duct.
Yeah.
So what they're governmental representatives.
Okay.
Ambassadors, if you will, to demonstrate that the three governments of the Federation, Klingon Empire, and Romulan Empire are working together to run this planet, so that everybody
to form some kind of very small alliance.
That's right. So that it's a token. It's a show of goodwill, if you so that they can say, hey, look, we're in together on this planet, so obviously we don't really have any bad blood, so that they can continue to do all the terrible things to each other, but not have anything official, and keep the neutral zone neutral and everything.
But the movie doesn't really tell you that.
I don't know. I kind of picked that up.
It's kind of it's brought up, and then a lot of other crap comes in, and the bigger plot washes in, and whatever this is never really worked out.
Well, it doesn't matter. This is just Nimbus 3 is the
The hell does Nimbus 2 look like?
Well, it's either uninhabitable or perfect, because Nimbus 3 for this is like the opening installation explosions in a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
Where it gives you the kernel of what the plot's going to be, while giving you something to look at when it blows up, but you don't really have to have too much more, because they'll explain it after it happens anyway.
Yeah.
Which they do 16 times. He explains what he's doing in the beginning. He explains what he's doing when they storm the city. He explains what he's doing when he gets to the ship. He explains what he's doing after they get through the barrier. He explains what he's doing before they go down on the shuttlecraft. All he does is say, hey, look, guys, I just want you guys to understand what we're doing here is we're looking for God. He's on a mission from God.
He's on a mission for God.
Well, yes.
To God. And then half an hour of camping.
Oh my God. This is just, if they wanted,
I guess they paid for location shooting in Yosemite, because this is painful. This is painful to sit through.
I think what happened, I think they wanted, at least in part of it, to have the tone of Star Trek 4, because that one actually worked and made money.
Yes, because I was going to say, they borrow a lot of the tone and the humorous elements from that one. And it doesn't work because Shatner's not a writer.
Right, and it's a different scenario.
Right.
Like, they literally, Star Trek 4 theoretically did not technically need a timeline.
Right.
Because they could just return to whenever they left at any given point.
Right.
They could take 20 years to to get the whales. The point is, if they show up on time in the future, everything's fine.
Right.
Or even
But
if they drop them off somewhere else in time.
there's the opening scene. I think I know whose idea this was. Is Kurt is scaling El Capitan. This is a 60-year-old man.
Which, as one of the Riff Tracks guys says, it's visualizing him scaling his ego.
Right. Free climbing his ego.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a man who clearly he's 60 years old and he spent some time at the buffet table.
Yeah.
And you never see his face except in a close-up. When he's there are various shots where you never actually see his face.
Yeah.
And
all you see is his ass and his badge. Which you also get a lot of during the ladder climbing sequence, where they, for some reason, the decks increase in number as they go
and decrease
up.
in number.
Well, no, as they're going up, it goes 12, 13, 64, 72. The bridge is on deck 1 at the top.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going up, the number should go down, first of all. And second, it's not an Imperial Star Destroyer. It does not have 72 decks, or 76 decks. It has, I think, 15?
Mm-hmm.
A refit Constitution class like that. I know,
yeah.
I'm getting into the weeds here, but even the Enterprise D, which was a whole lot bigger, only had, I think, 40 decks.
Okay, so I got a question for you. Now, you know a little bit more about Star Trek than I do. Rocket boots. Is this ever a thing before or after? I think the closest we get is in Star Trek 6, we get gravity boots.
Well, the gravity boots
and the mag boots in First Contact.
Right, that also, they have thrusters in their backpacks. I think that's more of what you get, and actually it's more of what you get throughout Star Trek, with the exception of here.
Yeah.
Because if you remember in Star Trek 1, when Spock was going into the huge space ass,
mm-hmm.
the big space sphincter.
Space sphincter.
He had that little thruster backpack.
Right.
So, I get that the technology for such things would exist, and
mm-hmm.
probably they did exist.
Yeah.
We'd never seen them in universe before,
mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean that they weren't there. They just weren't useful. I mean, they weren't useful here either.
Visually, they look stupid.
They look like ski boots.
They look like something out of somebody else's science fiction movie.
You know why? Because it probably was. The only reason they have a skeleton crew was probably because they couldn't afford the amount of extras they needed to make it look like they had a fully staffed ship.
Okay, but I also want to make note of the fact that he's talking to Spock. Spock is wearing these boots. He is hanging off of El Capitan.
Right.
On a sheer rock face.
Mm-hmm.
That is about 500 feet above the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And he's turned around and he's talking to him. If you're hanging on to this, you're not going to be talking to somebody.
And if you are, you're not going to turn around.
No.
You know, it's enough that you actually get your footing and your hand positions.
Mm-hmm.
Like I told you when I started watching this the other night.
I saw Free Solo, I know this.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I kind of feel more like watching Free Solo. 'Cause at least that was good and genuine. It was, it was actually real. It had a point, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, it had a similar point because it's there.
Yeah.
Which is the worst mantra for a movie ever.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the only reason this was made, because Star Trek was there.
because it's there.
and then you get then you start to feel like Ian Malcolm all of a sudden. You say you were so preoccupied with whether or not you could, you never stopped to think and see if you should. They shouldn't have.
Yes, because oh my God, this whole scene, this 30 minutes of camping, is pointless.
Well, it's actually
there is a scene.
It's more literal than you expect because they're being campy while they're camping. Like it's almost too on the nose.
There's an interminable campfire scene where they're sitting around. Now, bear in mind, these are three guys who, by the way, are absolutely joined at the hip for the rest of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys have been together and they've known each other for 25, 30 years. And when they sit around the campfire, they have the opportunity to just talk about, certain... You remember that scene in Star Trek II where Bones goes to visit Kirk in his home,
mm-hmm.
and they're talking about aging, they're talking about,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
make the most of your life while you still got it. Here, what are they talking about? They're talking about beans, they're talking about marshmallows, they're talking about...
Yeah, they're talking about... Basically, all they're doing is... This whole thing was meant to play on the Spock is still getting himself back together after he got his Katra put back.
But it doesn't go there.
It doesn't. Because this is... It's not all that far... It's not all that long after Star Trek IV.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it's about 3 weeks after Star Trek IV.
Yeah, it's 3 weeks because they've been having this conversation for that long.
Well, I think so.
And Bones says... They're sitting there, they're eating, and they're eating beans, and Bones says, it's an old family recipe. And no, it's not an old family recipe. You know what it is? It's beans with whiskey in it. That is lunch for a drunk on a Tuesday. Mm-hmm. That's not a family recipe.
Well, hey, you don't know what other spices he added to that can of beans.
I have no choice but to sample your beans. Okay, please change that line of dialogue.
And okay, so then they go into, okay, well, what are we what's next when we camp out? And Spock is like, I believe we're required to participate in something called the sing-along. It's like, you're not required to do shit.
You're on vacation.
Right. Just because you're camping doesn't mean you have to sit around a campfire eating baked beans and singing songs. Now, what you should be doing is exactly what they were kind of doing, is getting drunk. Because that's the only reason to go camping, because otherwise... I mean, camping sober is like fishing. Sober. Yeah,
I would have loved it if there's that scene where, where Bones has had too much and he looks at you're like, pissed me off. It's like, that's when you just take the whiskey away from him. It's like, okay, you've had enough. Or you let the talented veteran actor go, leave the camera on, and actually have something that's entertaining. Just let them talk
on off the cuff. Like, the three of them probably by themselves could have ad-libbed more real, in-character dialogue than what they wrote and had to memorize.
Let them talk for an hour. Let them talk for an hour and just pick out the best parts of it. The problem here is, even when it does try to get deep, it's meaningless. Mm-hmm. I've always known die alone.
Right, but what does that even mean? Like,
yeah,
because technically you do die alone because you're the only one that's dying at the time.
Right.
You're not dying in a... This isn't Heaven's Gate. This isn't Jonestown. We're not all drinking the Kool-Aid at the same time and dropping. You're going by yourself, even if you're surrounded by people.
What I thought that meant was, I am completely dependent on the two of you. That's what I heard.
I took it as, I know I won't die if I'm around anybody because I will be completely and utterly alone when I die because no one will want to be around me. Because
Which turns out not to be true.
he doesn't
didn't die alone.
Alone. He doesn't die surrounded by people, but he does have Picard there.
Yeah.
But if people think that he died alone, because of the thing in the Enterprise B, in the other Star Trek movie that we probably could bring up in this month.
Well, thank God the plot washes back in because I'm not kidding. This scene ends with
It's
a minute and a half of them laying by the campfire saying goodnight to each other.
Right, they totally Waltoned us. I mean, and it's 45 minutes before we actually get to do anything.
And all of a sudden, this giant light comes on, and Uhura comes out and says, "Sorry, your shore leave has been canceled." And I'm thinking, "Thank God the movie has come, but the movie has arrived."
I know. It's like they finally brought the script in. It's like Nichelle Nichols arrives with the script. Thank God. Now we could actually start this trash heap. Like
because there's this whole thing. I don't understand this. Was this supposed to be funny?
Yes.
Because it adds to nothing. It's the fact that the Enterprise is a trash heap.
Yeah.
Nothing is working.
And
now that's plausible on a new ship.
I guess. You know what's not particularly plausible?
What?
Sulu and Chekhov.
I didn't even know they were there.
They're in the same place for no reason.
Yeah.
Except there was no budget to shoot them anywhere else.
Yeah, they don't have shore leave on their own.
Right. So those two are walking around. They're clearly not dressed for the weather that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Because
they're lost.
They're in fall gear, and it's like 70 degrees, they said. And they're lost. They have a communicator, but somehow they don't have a tricorder?
Did this feel like a deleted scene to you? It felt like if you were watching the DVD and you were watching the deleted scenes,
Jerry,
this is something that would come up.
Jerry, the whole movie feels like a deleted scene. This is like Star Trek V is the Star Trek version of Bob Dylan's self-portrait.
Yeah.
Which was basically, he concocted that, and later he said it was an album of outtakes. I was like, well, if those are the outtakes, where are the good ones? Because the good takes, because oh my God, the Grill Marcus, one of the critics for Rolling Stone at the time, opened his review of Bob Dylan's self-portrait with, "What is this shit?"
Mm-hmm.
That's Star Trek V.
Yeah.
Star Trek V is a self-portrait movie. And
every scene is just the first hour of this movie is just interminable. You're just sitting there going, what? Because it's this thing in which Kirk, Spock, and Bones are supposed to be relaxing. And it's intercut with this desperate situation going on with this Klingon, with this, this Vulcan named Sybok, who, by the way, is a character that is just
dumb.
Just
dumb.
And comes into this bar and takes over. And whoever it is that he's given the feel-good juice to, he gathers this little army of people to take it over. And somehow,
he gathers
in all of Starfleet, there's only one crew that can fix this.
Well, okay, so first of all, he gathers an army of Mad Max extras.
Yes.
Assaults the three-boobed cat bar.
Mm-hmm. The cat house.
literally. Yeah. Yeah,
It looks like the set decorator, the art director, was given photographs of the Mos Eisley bar from Star Trek, and somebody said, "Do this."
well, poor Harv Bennett. They probably gave him like
The
16.
producer.
Yeah. They probably gave him $16 bubble gum and some tape and said, "All right, make us a set."
Yeah, and it was 1/3 of the budget of any, and because it looks it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does. It looks like some. It looks like a bar, a sci-fi bar that you would have in some crappy TV show in the '90s. On one of those independent, one of those syndicated stations. One of those shows that didn't last very long. That's what this looks like.
Right. It's
Because even the cat lady makeup looks stupid.
well, everything in this looks awful. Like even the Klingons don't look right.
They look like rejects from the Kiss Army.
Yeah. just guys who got the wrong makeup memo and
And they got an Oscar nomination for Star Trek 6 for making Klingons.
well, the Klingons in Star Trek 6 actually work.
They look like Klingons. These guys, I don't know what this is. I mean, there's a Klingon ambassador whose only line in this movie is "Brrr."
Yeah.
He walks in, he's drinking, and that's his solo line in this movie.
Oh no, he talks. He talks near the end.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Because when the bird of prey finally catches up with them in the Great Barrier, which only takes them 7 goddamn hours to get to. As opposed to they have to fly across the fucking galaxy.
Well,
it would take them decades to get there.
Listen, this whole thing, they go to this town, they infiltrate this town with a Bugs Bunny gag.
Right, because their transporters aren't working because the Starship Enterprise has become the Millennium Falcon. And
right.
Nothing works.
It's falling apart.
Right, and...
Here's an idea. Why don't you put them on another ship? Just...
Or not,
I'm sure Excelsior's not doing anything right now.
Or not have that, like... That's the funny part. Like, they say, hey, aren't there any other ships? And they're like, yeah, but no other experienced captains. We need Kirk. It's like, okay, so... buff the paint off of this one, rename another one, and let's go out in one that fucking works.
Yeah.
And actually give me a whole crew, because we're in space dock, we're not in the middle of nowhere, we're literally dry docked. We are not even in space. At Starfleet headquarters, where everybody is. And they can't get a full crew.
Enterprise. And the inside of the Enterprise is literally falling apart.
It is just open, and everything is just like in complete and total disarray. They're in space dock.
And Scotty's so stressed he's happy with a bag of chips.
For dinner, yeah. And not just chips, ration chips in aluminum foil bags that just...
Oh, he's happy. He looks like a little. He looks like a happy little kid with that bag. He's just.
She's like, oh, I brought dinner. Oh, lass, you're the most understanding woman I know.
And there's indications of some kind of relationship again,
or
not
some
followed
kind of
up on.
some kind of budding relationship that never takes off because
maybe she's been doing that. Maybe she's been doing that dance for him. I don't know.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Do we have to? It's a Bugs Bunny gag. Honestly,
it's a Bugs Bunny gag that leads into another Bugs Bunny gag because they get onto the horses, they're riding in the cloaks, and they say, "Oh, close the door! They're not far behind us. They're coming after us." The only thing they didn't do is stand on each other's shoulders with a giant overcoat and try to pass themselves off as one guy.
dressed like Santa Claus, like the Three Stooges.
Yeah. I mean, they did everything but walk up and say, "Hey, pizza delivery. We didn't order any pizzas." Well, I don't know what to tell you, guy. This is the address on the order. I don't know. Somebody's got to give me the $15. I don't know. I'm surprised that wasn't a bit in this.
Well, it kind of was,
Well,
because
yeah.
but they get in there and they get captured
Surprise, surprise.
by Cybok, who you still have no idea who this is. It's ridiculous. And the whole thing, there's this long, laborious scene where they're trying to get the shuttle back.
Oh my God! This is after Kirk throws the
cat lady in a
three-breasted
pool.
cat stripper into a pool table. Thank you, Michael Nelson. Pool table. Thank you, Michael J. Nelson.
And she's electrocuted.
Yeah, he drowns and electrocutes a three-breasted cat humanoid woman.
Mhm.
The fact that can be uttered in a summation of your movie,
That's the summation of a Star Trek movie, no less.
anybody's movie, because at least the Total Recall triple-breasted woman looked actually like more natural.
Well, yeah, they had a budget.
Well, yeah.
Well, they get captured, and there's this weird... Again, the special effects in this movie are garbage, because this
Now, see,
scene where
I say just call them effects because they are not special.
they're not special. Because when they're trying to get that shuttle back on the thing, it is early computer technology,
Oof.
and it's barely even finished.
Oof.
There's a scene where the Klingon bird of prey is going to shoot at the
Right, and
at the Enterprise
they have to drop the shields, fly the shuttle in, and
manually.
raise the shields up so they don't have the 15 seconds to do it. So Sulu's just going to fly in. Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
You're probably not.
But as far as I understand the technology of propulsion in this universe,
Mm-hmm.
and I do own 2 Star Trek technical manuals,
Mm-hmm.
there are braking thrusters
Mm-hmm.
that they could have fired very quickly getting into the thing. The larger problem is Sulu doesn't get the nose up high enough, and he drags the bottom across instead of probably actually getting the proper angle like he could have because he's a damn good pilot.
Right.
Coming in like Poe Dameron in The Last Jedi when he flies into the hangar and just stops.
Yeah, and if you could have established that maybe this shuttlecraft was damaged and there was something wrong with it and he had to fly it in that way, even if you just one little line of dialogue.
Right, but the only thing that they have is they have to do it fast.
Yeah.
So let's concoct this thing to make a crash so that we can have another struggle that will end very unsatisfactorily.
Right.
Again, only to get us to the brig, which is again them sitting around talking to each other about everything and nothing,
Mm-hmm.
only to be rescued after a quote-unquote comedy sequence of Kirk trying and getting electrocuted to Scotty blowing up the wall.
Well,
What are
we
you all
also,
standing around for? Do you not know a jailbreak when you see one?
that's actually a great trailer line, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
But the whole thing is hinged on this. Spock has a chance to kill Cybok,
Mm-hmm.
and he doesn't take it.
Right.
And
Because now I'm going to leave
the
this one to
movie
you.
is holding this piece of information from you that easily could have been
Oh
dealt
my
with
God.
earlier.
They're holding on to this. I mean, second one, like, you know, Spock is troubled by seeing this guy because
He sees him on the tape, and he said, and you see a close-up of him.
he transfers it over to his station. And he's looking at him. He's, "You look like you've just seen a ghost. Perhaps I have." And then he tells him every single thing about Cybok's life except the fact that he's his half brother.
He tells him it's something about. Now this stands for a lot too. The story is that apparently he was exceptionally gifted. At what, I'm not 100% sure.
Well, they do have the Vulcan's primary school is the Vulcan Science Academy. So
Right.
apparently they study science in like a vague 1950s, I'm a scientist, so I know physics, chemistry, biology,
But he was exceptionally
geology,
intelligent.
everything.
He was exceptionally intelligent, and he was a star student. And they, so much so that they thought that he would take his place among the great Vulcan philosophers, among the great, the halls of glory, whatever. And he didn't want any of that.
Right. He wanted to pursue knowledge that was forbidden by a group of people whose dedication is only to knowledge of anything.
Now, we're told all this by Spock, and then we see Cybok. I'm not seeing any of
None
it.
of it. I'm just seeing
I'm not
dude.
seeing any of this.
I'm just seeing regular dude.
Yeah. I'm just seeing a guy in a robe.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, they save the information for that he's his half-brother way longer than they should have.
This is the exact opposite problem that Rise of Skywalker had, where
Yeah.
they dropped the whole Palpatine, Rey being a Palpatine, spoiler alert, really too early. Like,
Yeah.
they could have dropped that. The first time we could have heard that and it would have had emotional impact is at the end when he's like, "Have you come here to stop me as a Jedi?"
Mhm.
Yes. No. Your master only had his father to help him. You've only got your grandfather. Me.
Yeah.
And give him his little cackle and everything. Like,
Yeah.
that would have been emotionally resonant instead of them walking in a circle around each other in a hangar bay
Mhm.
talking about it.
But they're holding this information so it can be put out there as a joke.
Almost. Yes. Yeah.
Now, I will admit, I will have to admit this. The exchange that gets Kirk there is pretty funny. I love the energy of that scene.
I know for a fact that you do not have a
Is that
brother.
your brother? Because I happen to know you don't have a brother. You are correct.
Technically,
See?
you are correct. I do not have a brother. You see, Cybok is my half brother.
I need to sit down.
I need to sit down. Did
See,
you
that-
notice?
that-
Look, if you look, I thought this was hilarious because how is this what possible reason could there be for this? If you look by the button where he pushes to have the seat come out,
Yeah.
it says "Do not operate
Do
while
not
in
operate
space
in
deck."
space dock.
Why can you not operate a prison chair in space dock? Is it like a
I
cell
saw that
phone?
too.
Does it like throw off the navigational charts? You have trouble getting out the garage door? Like, what is
Yeah,
that?
I saw that too. I was wondering about that. It's like, it says, do not operate in space docks. What?
Like, there's so much about this on just visual levels that just don't make any sense in any context with any kind of Star Trek. And I realize that up to this point, my points about how bad this is have all hinged on how much it goes against Star Trek canon.
My problem is that it's so haphazard. There's stuff that comes up and it's never brought up again. It never has. There's things that don't make sense. And this scene, for example, there's this whole exchange about Kirk is trying to figure a way out of this prison cell. And there's this whole thing about Spock, says they used the most intelligent person they had, and even he couldn't get out of here. And then Scotty figures out how to open it.
Right, with a bomb.
And I'm thinking, yeah, and then I'm thinking, well...
I think you can't escape from the inside. Like, it's escape-proof.
You need somebody on the outside
right,
to get
it's
you out. Okay.
escape-proof unless you have somebody else helping you who's not in there with you.
Right. There's this whole thing with Morse code.
I'm a little rusty, but I know it perfectly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an S? Okay, T? No. I learned Morse code when I was a Boy Scout. Could I decipher anything out of it now other than SOS? No!
Especially not stand back.
Right! No! I would get S. It's like, okay, the rest of it I don't know.
And they do this thing where, again, the comedy in this, it's not just cute little lines like it was in Star Trek 4. No, this is full on
These are full scene bits
of dad jokes.
Right, like the climbing up the turbo shaft.
It's stupid.
So
oh my god, it's a giant waste of time because they bring back the rocket boots. And the physics of having these three grown men on these rocket boots.
I don't have a quibble with that. Here's where my problem with the rocket boots being reintroduced here is. My problem
the fact that they've been reintroduced.
No, my problem is that Spock does not come up from the bottom. He comes down from the top.
And you can see the shadow of the thing that's holding him up, too.
I don't care about that. If he got up far enough in that short amount of time without getting caught to get back into the out-of-service turbo shaft and come down, why the fuck didn't he take the other two with him? He went up 4 decks!
His comedy bit, I mean...
And then he comes in. If he would have risen up and maybe had Dr. McCoy on with him as he came up and said, something clever like, going up. And then he gets on and then they go up, or they do that stupid little fire the rockets thing. They could have done that. But he comes from up.
Yeah.
Which means he got up multiple decks only to come back down to get them. If he knew how to do that, why didn't they just go that way?
Yeah.
That seems like it would have been much easier.
And then this is followed, again, tone problem, by another deep scene that makes no sense. And
How are we watching this?
Oh, this is the scene. Cybok tells them that he can fix their pain. Now, we're led to believe that what we're seeing is what he's been doing to everybody else.
Right, but
how has he had the time to do this?
With everybody.
To do all of this presentation with everybody? Because what he does is he takes them into this little gathering room, the three of them, and he's going to show them the deepest pain that they have.
Okay.
Now, he goes to Bones, and he's going to show Bones his father, who died of a rare ailment. And in a bit of weird comedy, they ended up finding the cure, like
He said not long after they found a cure, he put in he basically terminated his father's life. He
Yeah.
ended his father's life.
Because he
Now-
was in pain.
Okay.
But if you look at the guy, how much longer did he have? I mean, really? Sorry.
So
Because, I mean, his skin is bone white, and he looks like he is at death's door.
well, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, they did a very good job making him look like he was about to die.
Yeah.
My question is, okay, I get how this would be a very tormenting pain,
Yeah, absolutely.
in your soul.
Absolutely.
but is it just the fact that it has now been relayed to someone else that he feels okay about it? Like, are they trying to say that our deepest pain no one else knows about? Like, it's like this thing that's secret, and once we unburden ourselves with, somebody knows about it, now we're free and we'll just follow this guy to the middle of the galaxy. I don't think this is stupid.
And also, it's laid on the fact that it's laid on the idea that your deepest pain is only one thing.
One thing, and it's the
It's
one
one event.
and it's the one thing that defines you. Now, Bones killing his, doing that, easing his father's suffering, had to have happened long after, like, probably not long, but like, he had to have been in Starfleet for some time, and after the series, like, probably when he was practicing on Earth in between the series and the first movie. So he would have already been himself before that.
Right.
Like, I get, so Spock. So when they do,
Oh, the one with
so-
Spock
but-
is
but-
where I
okay,
really
so
have some problems.
so when we do when they do McCoy, it's possible to think that we are in a mental projection that only the two of them can see based off of Cybok's telepathy.
They're all seeing it.
But then when you find out that they're all seeing it without holographic technology in the room to recreate any of this, none of it makes less sense.
Right.
How is it there? Because they start walking over. He's like, "Oh, what is this?" And Spock is like, "Oh, it appears as though we are witnessing
it's
the
like a
moment
Christmas
of my
Carol.
birth." Yeah,
It's like a Christmas
yeah,
Carol.
Yeah, but how would Spock's pain be that his father said he looked so human at birth? How does he remember that?
Okay, I've got this. This is what bugs me. It's not only that, but Cybok is apparently pointing to the moment of his birth at the very beginning of his life.
Right.
And Sarek holds the baby up and he says, "So human." And I'm thinking, okay, but you've forgotten the following 60 years in which they built a relationship.
Yeah.
And Sarek and Spock developed this relationship, and it forgets the scene in the previous one, where he says something about, you'll recall I objected to your enlistment in Starfleet. It turned out that judgment was incorrect. You're forgetting moments like that.
Right. And even just, it's complete, and is basically saying Spock being born is the source of his torment.
No.
So his life is his life's torment. That's like saying, I don't know.
Spock died and came back.
Yeah.
Okay?
But then he goes to Kirk, who has honestly
They let Kirk off the hook. They do. Because he doesn't get one.
They let us off the hook. Because we didn't have to see Shatner act
Yeah.
that scene.
And he tells him,
He's like, no, I don't want you to take away my pain. I need my pain. It's part of it's who defines us, who makes us it's what makes us who we are. If your life is specifically and exclusively defined by the pain and suffering you've been through in your life and nothing else, I'm sorry.
Well, I think, and it's not worded very well, but what they're saying is that the pain and suffering and sadness that you go through is how we learn.
True, yeah.
You only
No.
learn by falling down. Nobody learns by, it's part of the experience.
Right, and remembering that basically Cybok is offering flash grief counseling that somehow is immediate in its
But nobody calls him on that.
well, no, because I guess he has unlocked the power of being a super therapist. I don't know. It doesn't.
The basic template of when Shatner came up with this idea, the basic template was, it was in the mid to late 80s when the televangelist thing was happening.
Right.
And a lot of televangelists were taking advantage of people who were living in poverty and they had nothing, and these guys were going on television saying, "Send me all your worldly possessions."
Right.
And and they were just left with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not here. It's not in this movie. Pieces of it are in this movie, but there's no consequence to it.
Right. There's, like most of everything else that gets brought up, it doesn't really get any kind of a resolution.
If he had done something like Ecstasy,
Right.
in which he is able to give them this absolute euphoria, and then takes whatever feeling they have and then just leaves them with nothing, then you would have had something.
Right, and then, like, you could see that they, that's why they follow him, because they've become mindless vassals.
Right.
And
who are feeling good because they're with him.
Right, and, when he dies, everybody can come back to their senses or something, because he was it was just a mental control that he had over them. Without him being there, they all come back and their memories all come back and they're done. That is a more Star Trek story.
But it's not here.
It's not.
Because this whole idea is dropped immediately.
Oh, yeah.
In favor of he apparently was gathering followers with this. Now, this is a massive part of the plot.
Yeah.
That is only used to gather followers so that he could steal the Enterprise and take it through the Great Barrier.
And so that he could use the Enterprise crew without having to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
So they got the supporting cast in there so that they could, be part of it without, I guess, having to have any stakes or have anything, like, important be put on them. Because in any other Star Trek movie, all of them would have been plotting together to get Kirk, Spock, and McCoy out. They would have feigned to go along with it so that they could have their own little resistance on the side.
Right.
Everything that they made this so that there was no conflict.
Right.
At all.
There are no consequences.
Right.
And by the end of it, it's just completely pointless.
Right. It's all of it is an imposed situation that A, doesn't need to happen, B, shouldn't happen the way that it does, and C, just it has nothing in common with anything else that came before it or after it.
And this Vulcan whatever, because there's a line in Star Trek 3 where somebody says, "I've never understood Vulcan mysticism," and I don't know if the rest of Star Trek ever really explored this, but here it is so completely pointless because all Cybok has to do is go on board a small ship and give them the Vulcan mind pinch, and take the thing hostage.
Well, I think he wanted.
He wouldn't be killing anybody, but
Yeah, but the Vulcan nerve pinch knocks people out. He needed
Right.
people that could actually fly this ship.
Right.
Like he couldn't fly the ship. That would be like me running up to a local airport with 6 friends, knocking out the pilot of the private jet, sitting down in the thing and going, okay,
Well, I'm
let me
just
flip
saying.
this switch and see what that does.
I'm just saying the whole thing with the mysticism is a long, long way to nowhere. And you could have dealt with this in a couple of scenes
Jerry,
without all that
this
stuff.
whole movie is a long way to nowhere.
I mean, because he explains that the reason that he wants to do this, he's looking for God. He's not the essence, not not the essence. No, literally,
the
physically,
being that, I mean,
he believes exists in the center of the galaxy.
Of the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Why is our galaxy home to God when there are billions of trillions of galaxies in the universe? Why is he in the center of ours?
Apparently, the Garden of Eden is eternal paradise.
So here's the other thing. So if we, as humans, were kicked out of Eden paradise, and it was this planet in the middle of the galaxy, why would he have thrown them onto another planet? And why are the other cultures that believe in it not there? Because not everybody has the same creation myth.
And how did he get there in the first place?
Exactly. And I have to say, I don't know if you noticed this. I wanted you to pay attention to this, but I don't know if you've rewatched this since I said this. But if you look at Cybok when he's giving his big speech about God and everything, it's like, it was mythologized by pagans, and he throws his hands up like this little dove sign on his chest when he says the word pagans, and it's very brief, it's very quick, and it's in a long shot, but it's the stupidest thing I see him do in the whole movie. I have no idea what purpose there is to it. What is that?
Yeah. Now, I want to ask you this. Was the Great Barrier ever mentioned before this?
No.
Because apparently it's this compacted center of the galaxy that nobody can get to.
Apparently, yeah, and it's just a lot of sensory white noise, apparently.
Yeah.
And so, not the supermassive black hole surrounded by a dense cluster of stars feeding it so that it has enough gravitational pull to hold the entire galaxy together. No. It's a single planet without a sun, yet it still has light. So much light that it completely washes out all of the models that are flying around over it.
And it builds up. They build up the fact that getting through the Great Barrier is impossible.
Right, and they do it
when,
without... Their screens go fuzzy for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like they don't start shaking. They don't have a total power failure. Like,
it's a little turbulence.
Right, it's a little turbulence, and their instruments go out, and that's it.
What should be happening what should be happening as they're passing the Great Barrier is what happened to the Enterprise in Star Trek Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
That's what should be happening. Where it's just ripping this ship to shreds.
Or like in Star Wars Rebels, when they're taking Zeb's people back to the original homeworld in the unknown regions.
Yeah.
And they have to go through all these weird anomalies, and the ship, like, it starts to lose power, and it starts to shake and almost fall apart, and then they come out of it. No, this is just, I mean, this wouldn't even register on the Richter scale, and it's supposed to be this thing that no ship that has ever tried to go through it has ever come back, no probe has ever returned.
It should look like the Millennium Falcon after it came back from the light speed jumps.
Right.
At least.
Right, but it looks like it's going over a speed bump. And not even a large one.
Yeah.
Like one that's there because the apartment complex had to put one in because of some sort of an order, but they were really half-hearted about it and didn't want it there.
Right. The absolute the end of this movie, the back half of this movie is so completely screwed up. I don't even know. They end up on this planet, and it's this big, vast thing, and all of a sudden these fingers come out of the ground, and boom, we're on a soundstage.
Yeah.
And God shows up. God, quote unquote,
right,
shows up.
A being of pure energy that is just
played by a wonderful actor named George Murdoch, who's been on Star Trek before.
Here's what I actually think this was. I'm going to attempt to explain what this being was.
Get comfortable, folks.
So, if you will recall, in Star Trek The Next Generation, I believe it was Encounter at Farpoint, which was in 1987.
You're not going to say space jellyfish, are you?
No. There was a scene in which, to prove his point, Q snaps his fingers and throws them on the other end of the galaxy, where they end up talking to a big floating head. I think he is a huge criminal from whatever race that is, that was put there ages ago because he was an asshole. And that's it. I think it's just a prison for a jerk.
Yeah.
Of this floating disembodied head race of people that the Enterprise encountered for half a minute because Q was like, you don't know shit about shit, here's why. And then he has them talk to them, and then he shows them the Borg, and then the entire galaxy is ruined.
Okay, let me tell you this. This is a little piece of my history, okay? When I was growing up, going to church, I asked my mother, what does God look like? And her answer, from a child's point of view, was very reasonable. She said, your mind can't conceive it. That made sense to me. Your brain, your human brain, cannot conceive of what God would look like. When they show you God in this movie, he looks like something out of a children's illustrated Bible, book of Bible stories. Perhaps this is what you think of. Okay, that might be what I'm expecting.
I mean,
because he looks like Charlton Heston in the Ten Commandments.
Listen, I personally prefer.
That's who should have played this part.
I prefer the Alanis Morissette God from the end of Dogma.
Yeah.
Personally,
something simple.
Well, I mean, I'm not a big Alanis Morissette fan, but
But yeah, I understand.
It's better than a crusty old white guy.
Yeah. Just thought you ought to know.
Yeah. Well, you ought to know.
Yeah, you ought to know.
It's just so ironic. Anyway, the,
But you know,
but seriously, folks.
but it's this weird.
This is just.
I don't even know what in the world. It's supposed to be God. He's trying to convince them that he's talking to Cybok, and all of a sudden behind him, Kirk goes, I have a question.
What does God need?
What does God need with a starship? And Spock says, you haven't answered his question. And I'm thinking, who wrote this dialogue? This is the stupidest. Oh my God. This.
Yeah. Here, Spock following up on the "you didn't answer his question" is actually the least of the script worries here.
Mm-hmm.
There are two moments where where Kirk contacts the Enterprise to tell them nothing.
Yeah.
He says, first of all, they get out of the thing and they're looking around and they don't see anything, and he goes, "Kirk to Enterprise, we have a and then he looks at Bones and Spock and they're like, "Oh." And then it cuts away. Why did he talk to them? And then in like a "here, come here, let me whisper you the plan" kind of a thing, near the end is, "All right, Enterprise, listen carefully." And then it.
And the movie, I'm not kidding. Yeah,
it's
sorry.
like he got paid per line, and he added lines so that he could just get a little bit with like $10 more.
And I've never seen a movie so laboriously limp to an ending.
God.
Because it comes back and it finds out that it's Spock who is... Oh... And then they have this weird thing where the thing is destroyed, and then it ends with a cocktail party.
Yeah, with
this little light reception with this comedy bit with Chekhov and Sulu.
I never thought that I'd be drinking with a Klingon. Oh yeah, and then it is wonderful muscles. Like,
and then they end with this pseudo meaningful. Maybe God's not out there. Maybe he's in here. Well, he's certainly not in this movie.
Nope. Well, he certainly. God. Yeah. If anyone is ever looking for proof of God, this movie is not where you should go. This will actually prove my point better than yours.
God, I mean,
this thing like is like a master's thesis as to why there is no deity protecting us.
And the camping scene is the payoff,
right? Because it goes back to that. That's how it ends.
They go back to that.
Yeah. That's the That's the callback.
And the whole thing
they call back to it the whole movie.
The whole thing with the Cybok being his brother is completely pointless. They never follow up on it.
There's no reason for it whatsoever.
It doesn't change him. It doesn't mean anything. It is completely and totally pointless. Just like this whole freaking movie.
Right, like they get to the end and seriously, like the last line could have been, "Well, that happened." Dum da da dum.
It's almost like the whole movie never happened.
Yeah, like they just look at each other in front of the mirror. Oh, we're family to each other. Okay, well,
yeah,
that happened. Dum da da dum da da dum.
It's like the whole thing was just nothing. It just didn't happen. They could have just had them tell this story back, and this is the aftermath. This is just them.
Seriously, this could have been the three of them sitting in that observation lounge with the oddly spaced, uncomfortable-looking chairs.
Mm-hmm.
The social distancing before and after they needed social distancing.
Right.
How is that a room where you would go to do anything?
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's big enough. It's really 4 times the size of anything that we saw previously, and can host the entire crew of 3 starships.
Yeah.
Or 2 starships, I guess. I don't get it. There's a whole lot with this movie that you just kind of look at it and you scratch your head and you go, exactly what did Shatner have on Paramount bosses that allowed this movie to get made?
They weren't paying attention.
They couldn't have been.
They were just not paying attention.
Gave him
they were saying, well, it's a Star Trek movie, it'll make money, we don't care.
They gave him a low budget and said, do what you can. And
Shatner acted like a giant baby about everything, as he has since the original series, and got his movie made, and it was just garbage. I don't watch this one at all. This is the only Star Trek movie I have not seen in a theater, and I'm not really bothered by that.
Well, they were coming out before I was interested in Star Trek, so I've not seen 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7 in the theater, like most of them. I've not seen in the theater, but
that's all I got.
This is just sad, because you can see, you can literally see in every moment of this movie, you can see how they could have done a better scene with exactly the same things that they had.
This thing just needed a total rewrite. You know,
it never feels like it got. It feels like they never started the screenplay, let alone they never really finished it.
Well, they were making it up as they went along.
Right. But they didn't have the Epstein brothers. To help it along.
Epstein brothers help a lot.
Oh yeah. What's coming up?
Whatever you got next week.
Well, I haven't chosen my second pick yet, but next week we are talking about the crap of the Crichton crop from the 1990s.
Oy.
We're talking about Congo, and we're talking about Sphere. Why?
And they're both garbage.
Because we have to talk about Sphere.
Every movie, they kept hoping it was going to be Jurassic Park.
And
the problem
none of it ever was, because
none of it ever was.
Because they never gave it to a Jurassic Park a Spielberg level director to try any of it.
No,
like the only Michael Crichton book that made a good movie is Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park,
and that's not even all that good of a book. None of his books were all that particularly
It's not even his best movie.
No, not even close, but it's the best Michael Crichton adaptation. And I have seen The Andromeda Strain, Terminal Man, all of them. I think I've seen virtually all of them, and none of them are good except the first Jurassic Park.
We'll talk about that next week, because that's a whole thing.
They are so they're just terrible. And then we have the crap of the crop of 80s action.
I've chosen a Schwarzenegger. Our first dip into Schwarzenegger. We're talking about Raw Deal. I love it.
Second, my friend, we did talk about Batman and Robin.
We did talk about Batman and Robin, but yeah, we're talking about Raw Deal. I mean,
this is a stink pile. This is
a stink pile, but a fun stink pile, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, and then whatever the hell I come up with to end.
Whatever you come up with for the end of November. All right.
That wraps it up here for us. You can find us, listen to us on iTunes and YouTube. Hit the like and subscribe buttons, to the notifications so that you know when anything happens. Find all of our back episodes at the podbaydorspodcast.wordpress.com. You can find us on Twitter at pod_bay, also on Patreon at that same one. That wraps it up here for us, and the Pod Bay doors are now closed.
The mission has been completed.
I believe we are required to engage in a ritual known as the sing-along.
That's great. I haven't sung around a campfire since I was a boy in Iowa. What are we going to sing? What, Bone, what are we going to sing?
How about Camptown Races?
Pack up your troubles.
Are we leaving, Captain?
It's a song title, Spock.
Moon over Rigel 7.
Row, row, row your boat.
Row, row, row your boat. I love row. Do you know row, 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 row your boat?
That song did not come up in my research, Captain.
The lyrics are very simple. It's row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. The doctor and I will start it off, and then when we give you a signal, you jump in. Doctor, if you please.
Don't say I didn't warn you. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily,
Lightly down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Come on, Spock. Why didn't you jump in?
I was trying to comprehend the meaning of the words.
It's a song, you green-blooded Vulcan. You sing it. The words aren't important. What's important is that you have a good time singing it.
Oh, I am sorry, Doctor. We'll be having a good time.
God, I liked him better before he died.
All right. Let's call it a night. Will you?
Just
Let's
keeps
go to
after.
bed and just let's get some sleep.
Captain.
Spock, we're on leave. You can call me Jim.
Jim.
Yes, Spock?
Life is not a dream.
Go to sleep, Spock.
Yes, Captain.
All I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by.
Melville, John Masefield.
Are you sure about that?
I am well versed in the classics, Doctor.
Then how come you don't know row, row, row your boat?
You just gonna sit there and block that thing, or are you gonna play something? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream.
Merrily, merrily, merrily,
Your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Row,